Hello everyone, and welcome back to Let's Play Skyrim. Last time we really finished clearing out the city of Whiterun proper and advanced to Dragonsreach. We have 10 people to talk to and pickpocket, as well as a big area to loot here, so let's get started right away.
Go cast your fancy magic someplace else.
The maids are out working. Fianna is the first, and she's got nothing to pickpocket, so let's just talk to her.
Ain't nobody high and mighty in these halls, except in the Jarl. And don't you forget. Don't you go tracking your dirty boots on my clean floor. Soldiers. They're everywhere these days, and not a one of them knows how to pick up after themselves. Yeah? What?
Alright, that's it for her. Let's cross the hall and talk to the other one, Gerda. She's got a few things to take. 4 gold, a horker loaf, a lockpick, and a silver garnet ring. Now let's talk to her.
I might just be a servant among lords, but don't think for a moment I don't take my duties as seriously as the Jarl himself takes his. If my cleaning gets in your way, just say the word and I'll be off. This here is Dragonsreach, and it's my task to see it looks fit for a Jarl night and day. Need something?
Alright, only 8 people to go, and 3 of them are kids. So we're experiencing a bit of a glitch here. Let's stay away from Farengar for now. Here is the Jarl's brother, Prothgar. Let's pick his pocket and then talk to him. Ale, cooked beef, 13 gold, a lockpick, a ring of minor alteration, pickpocket increased to 97, excellent, and a belted tunic. Let's talk to him.
All this standing around is rubbish. We should be taking the fight to the Stormcloaks. I'm not a man. I'm a weapon in human form. Just unsheath me and point me at the enemy. My brother takes counsel from Proventus Avenici. What a laugh. He takes counsel from his daughter, and she's a bloody blacksmith. I'm waiting.
Alright, that's it for Hrongar. Just to show you, down these stairs to the left is the second second exit from the Dragonsreach dungeon, which I believe I showed you while we were down there. I'm sorry, I'm coming down with a bit of a cold, but
Need a blade?
I have the free time to record a video, so I'd still like to do it. And I won't have that free time for long, fingers crossed.
Get away from me.
Alright, that's 7. Here's the Jarl himself, Balgruuf the Greater. 48 gold, a grilled chicken breast, a ruby, some wine, a necklace of mending. We already have that effect,
You're not...
but it's going to be difficult to steal because it's very valuable.
Oh no. What you...
Pickpocket to 98.
You little...
Gotta love that. Silver ring, belted tunic. Now let's talk to him.
May the gods watch over your battles, friend. What is it that you need? You have my attention. Speak your mind. It pleases me to see you again. Yeah? Yes? I need something?
Okay, I think that's it. Why do you think Ulfric killed the High King?
No doubt he thought it was the only way to make his point. And also because he knew he could.
Whose side are you on?
If it's the war you're referring to, I'm on the side of Whiterun. No doubt General Tullius and his friends in the Empire will tell you that I owe them my loyalty. And perhaps I do. Ulfric Stormcloak would say that I owe my allegiance to the Nord people as they fight for Skyrim's independence. Perhaps this is also true. The day might come when I am forced to draw my sword for one side or the other. But that day has not come yet.
How can you protect Whiterun from the dragons?
With good planning and constant vigilance. Even now, my court wizard, Farengar, continues his research into ways we might drive back these terrors. We must also have ample reserves of water to combat the fires that will surely spread after an attack. But our greatest weapon? Rage. For if we cannot kill the beast, we must at least have the tenacity to drive it back. Until brave heroes step forward to destroy these monsters, that is the best we can do.
Fair enough.
Now, if you don't mind, I've got a city to see.
Drops us to 6 people. And here is Proventus, the Steward. We'll do him next. Iron Dagger. Ale. Amethyst. Pickpocket increased to 99. 28 gold. A red apple. Wine. A silver garnet ring. A silver ring. And a belted tunic. Now let's talk to him.
Divines bless you. May the ground you walk quake as you pass. I serve Jarl Balgruuf as steward. The Jarl is, as you can imagine, very busy. Perhaps I can assist you. The task of steward is more important than you realize. The Jarl often asks for my invaluable counsel. I'm kept so busy, I don't get to see my daughter as often as I'd like. Perhaps you've met her. Adrian? She owns the shop, War Maidens. Need something? Enjoy your visit to Dragonsreach. Yes?
Tell me about the city's districts.
Well, there are 3 of them, arranged in 3 tiers, as you may have noticed. The Plains District is so named because it's the closest of the 3 to the plains that surround the city. The inn and marketplace are found there. Most of the city's residents live in the Wind District, which is the middle of the 3. Dragonsreach occupies the highest, which we call the Cloud District. From here, the Jarl can see all that goes on within his city.
Why is the keep called Dragonsreach?
That is an old tale, but well known to those of us who serve in the keep. Long ago, there lived a mighty hero of the Nords, Olaf One-Eye. Olaf did battle with a fearsome dragon named Numenex. The struggle between Olaf and the dragon culminated in a mighty duel atop Mount Anthor, with Olaf the victor. Olaf returned in triumph to Whiterun. By his decree, the city's keep was rebuilt as a prison for Numenex. And so, from that time until this, our great keep has been called Dragonsreach.
What's the city's history?
Ah, splendid. Our fine city has a proud history, and I'm happy to share what I know. The history of Whiterun begins with Jorvaskr, the Hall of the Companions. For a long time, it was the only building on the mountain. As time passed, a thriving community sprang up around Jorvaskr, as was common with mead halls. Today, Whiterun is the jewel of Skyrim. I can say without boast that it is the greatest city in all the holds.
Fair enough.
Enjoy your visit to Dragonsreach.
I don't know where the house Carl is, or where she's wandered to, or why.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! What's the magic?
I'm hopeful she'll reappear when I need her to. In the meantime, let's go to the Jarl's quarters, talk to his 3 kids. That'll be our next step. Because talking to Farengar will progress the main quest again, I'm going to wait until I'm finished with the rest of the keep to do it.
Father says I'm too young to train with the sword, so I practice with my fists. Father says I'm too young to train with the sword, so I practice with my fists.
There's Prothgar.
One of the new servants? Remember that I like my meat rare. Absurd that you can't cook good sweet rolls in the skeever hole of a city. Absurd that you can't cook good sweet
Dagny's
rolls
just
in
not
the
very
skeever
nice.
hole of a city.
And
Keep your
Nelkir.
hands to yourself. Another wanderer here to lick my father's boots. Good job. Another wanderer here to lick my father's boots. Good job.
And that, I reckon, is that. Though, we still need to find Irileth, but she might not reappear until we advance the main quest, which is fine. So let's start looting, and we'll begin at the back and work our way out using... So, here we start out in the Jarl's bedroom, farthest back we can get. Everything's free to take, so I only need to watch out for expensive things. Here's a new book, The Ransom of Zarek. The Ransom of Zarek, Ancient Tales of the Dwemer, Part 1, by Marabar Sul. Jalemil stood in her garden and read the letter her servant had brought to her. The bouquet of joss roses in her hand fell to the ground. For a moment it was as if all birds had ceased to sing and a cloud had passed over the sky. Her carefully cultivated and structured haven seemed to flood over with darkness. "We have thy son," it read. "We will be in touch with thee shortly with our ransom demands." Zarek had never made it as far as Akgun after all. One of the brigands on the road, orcs probably, or a cursed Dunmer, must have seen his well-appointed carriage and taken him hostage. Jalemil clutched at a post for support, wondering if her boy had been hurt. He was but a student, not the sort to fight against well-armed men, but had they beaten him? It was more than a mother's heart could bear to imagine. "Don't tell me they sent the ransom note so quickly," called a familiar voice, and a familiar face appeared through the hedge. It was Zarek. Jalemil hurried to embrace her boy, tears running down her face. "What happened?" she cried. "I thought thou had been kidnapped." "I was," said Zarek. "3 huge, soaring Nords attacked my carriage on the Frimborn Pass. Brothers, as I learned, named Matthace, Ulin, and Kurg. Thou should have seen these men, mother. Each one of them would have had trouble fitting through the front door, I can tell thee." "What happened?" Jalemil repeated. "Were thou rescued?" "I thought about waiting for that, but I knew they'd send off a ransom note, and I know how thou does worry. So I remembered what my mentor at Akgun always said about remaining calm, observing thy surroundings, and looking for thy opponent's weakness." Zarek grinned. "It took a while, though, because these fellows were truly monsters. And then, when I listened to them bragging to one another, I realized that vanity was their weakness." "What did thou do?" "They had me chained at their camp in the woods not far from Kale, on a high knoll overlooking a wide river. I heard one of them, Kurg, telling the others that it would take the better part of an hour to swim across the river and back. They were nodding in agreement when I spoke up. "I could swim that river and back in 30 minutes, I said. "Impossible," said Kurg. "I can swim faster than a little whelp like thee." So it was agreed that we would dive off the cliff, swim to the center island, and return. As we went to our respective rocks, Kurg took it upon himself to lecture me about all the fine points of swimming, the importance of synchronized movements of the arms and legs for maximum speed, how essential it was to breathe after only 3rd or 4th stroke, not too often to slow thyself down, but not too often to lose one's air. I nodded and agreed to all his fine points. Then we dove off the cliffs. I made it to the island and back in a little over an hour, but Kurg never returned. He had dashed his brains at the rocks at the base of the cliff. I had noticed the telltale undulations of underwater rocks, and had taken the diving rock on the right. "But thou returned?" asked Jalemil, astounded. Was that not then when thou escaped?" "It was too risky to escape then," said Zarek. "They could have easily caught me again, and I wasn't keen to be blamed for Kurg's disappearance. I said I did not know what happened to him, and after some searching, they decided he had forgotten about the race and had swum ashore to hunt for food. They could not see how I could have had anything to do with his disappearance, as fully visible as I was throughout my swim." The 2 brothers began making camp along the rocky cliff edge, picking an ideal location so that I would not be able to escape. One of the brothers, Matthace, began commenting on the quality of the soil and the gradual incline of the rock that circled around the bay below. Ideal, he said, for a foot race. I expressed my ignorance of the sport, and he was keen to give me details of the proper technique for running a race. He made absurd faces, showing how one must breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, how to bend one's knees to the proper angle on the rise, the importance of sure foot placement. Most important, he explained, was that the runner keep an aggressive but not too strenuous pace if one intends to win. "It is fine to run in 2nd place through the race," he said, "provided one has the willpower and strength to pull out in the end." I was an enthusiastic student, and Matthace decided that we ought to run a quick race around the edge of the bay before night fell. Ulin told us to bring back some firewood when we came back. We began at once down the path, skirting the cliff below. I followed his advice about breath, gait, and foot placement, but I ran with all my power right from the start. Despite his much longer legs, I was a few paces ahead as we wound the first corner. With his eyes on my back, Matthias did not see the gape in the rock that I jumped over. He plummeted over the cliff before he had a chance to cry out. I spent a few minutes gathering some twigs before I returned to Ulin at camp. "Now thou were just showing off," frowned Jarl. "Surely that would have been a good time to escape." "Thou might think so," agreed Zarek, "but thou had to see the topography. A few large trees and then nothing but shrubs. Ulin would have noticed my absence and caught up with me in no time, and I would have had a hard time explaining Matthias's absence. However, the brief forage around the area allowed me to observe some of the trees close up, and I could formulate my final plan. When I got back to camp with a few twigs, I told Ulin that Matthias was slow coming along, dragging a large dead tree behind him. Ulin scoffed at his brother's strength, saying it would take him time to pull up a live tree by the roots and drop it on the bonfire. I expressed a reasonable doubt. "I'll show thee," he said, ripping up a 10-foot-tall specimen effortlessly. "But that's scarcely a sapling," I objected. "I thought thou could rip up a tree." His eyes followed mine to a magnificent, heavy-looking one at the edge of the clearing. Ulin grabbed it and began to shake it with a tremendous force to loosen its roots from the dirt. With that, he loosened the hive from the uppermost branches, dropping it down onto his head. "That was when I made my escape, Mother," said Zarek in conclusion, showing a little schoolboy pride. While Matthias and Kurg were at the base of the cliff, and Ulin was flailing about engulfed by a swarm. Jarl embraced her son once again. Publisher's note. I was reluctant to publish the works of Marabar Sul, but when the University of Gwyllin Press asked me to edit this edition, I decided to use this as an opportunity to set the record straight once and for all. Scholars do not agree on the exact date of Marabar Sul's work, but it is generally agreed that they were written by the playwright Gor Felim, famous for popular comedies and romances during the interregnum between the fall of the First Cyrodiilic Empire and the rise of Tiber Septim. The current theory holds that Felim heard a few genuine Dwemer tales and adapted them to the stage in order to make money, along with rewritten versions of many of his own plays. Gor Felim created the persona of Marabar Sul, who could translate the Dwemer language, in order to add some sort of validity to the work and make it even more valuable to the gullible. Note that while Marabar Sul and his works became the subject of heated controversy, there are no reliable records of anyone actually meeting Marabar Sul, nor was there anyone of that name employed by the Mages Guild, the School of Julianos, or any other intellectual institution. In any case, the Dwemer in most of the tales of Marabar Sul bear little resemblance to the fearsome, unfathomable race that frightened even the Dunmer, Nords, and Redguards into submission, and built ruins that even now have yet to be understood. Well, there you go. Let's go back here. Got the wardrobe already. Here's an important moment. Second unusual gem. There are 24 throughout Skyrim. I think I mentioned that. And there we have 2. Do not miss those. They are vital. Killing before you're killed, we've read already. Now let's... Oh, these are new guards. I haven't seen them before.
You have committed
And look
crimes
there.
against Skyrim.
Homeboy's got an amulet of Stendar. I need that. 16 gold. Let's get that amulet. Excellent. Let me go to my gear checklist real quick. Okay, that's my second amulet of Stendar, which means I only need one more. Beautiful.
Go cast your fancy magic someplace else.
And before I keep doing this, I just realized, even though I did do the ones in the main hall, I never pickpocketed the guards out here. And you might have noticed pickpocket raising to 100 right there. Ah, what a nice little milestone. Our first skill to hit 100. For me, pickpocket is almost always the first skill that gets to 100, just because it raises so fast. Well, what about this guy? Okay. Guess that's it. So let's roll into Balgruuf's office next. Or his study, or whatever you want to call it. Mammoth Tusk I still had to steal. Too valuable. it is what it is. And we've got a lot of books. I'll only bother acknowledging if I come across one we haven't already read. Ah, and here one is. Urbane's Bestiary, Hag Ravens. We've read the one about ice wraiths, but they're a trilogy, so this is the second, and we'll have one more. 5 Suns Dawn. I have heard a tale most bizarre. A beautiful young woman cast out of town by the thrown stones of accusers for giving in to the dark arts. They say she fled into the Reach and never reappeared, and justly so, because they say the devilry of her magic had grown stronger with each new day. Shortly after, a witch of half woman and half bird had been sighted deep in the mountains, and as the sightings increased, the young women began to disappear. This tale has brought me to the Reach, where this witch they call a hag raven makes its home, with sword and shield at the ready, for I must see this creature and I must slay it. 24 Suns Dawn. The stomach of an average man would turn at the cruelty set before me. I first saw the thatch and bone, the human skulls, the dead goat heads mounted on pikes, filthy animal pelts, loose entrails, and feathers matted in blood. I had heard that forsworn revere and protect these hag ravens, and all around were their small, crude trinkets and altars to these witches on which sat dull, empty soul gems. What vile creature would live where all things are dead? Deeper into the lair I heard it first, an unsteady shuffling, followed by a heaving, unforgettable stench. I thrust the torch in front of me and waited for my eyes to adjust to the tunnel of darkness ahead of me. I saw the silhouette of what I thought to be a frail woman on an awkward gait, but the light of the torch revealed something else. This hag raven was horrifying, almost human, but more an abomination of woman and creature fused together, nothing more than a husk of humanity surrendered in exchange for possession of the powers of dark magic. This magic corrupted her greatly, and her dull glass eyes stared with hate from the visage of an old crone, sat atop the body of a contorted, misshapen human body adorned with black feathers. It bristled as it let out a piercing scream, and as a vivid red light began to form in the palm of its talons, it was all I could do to raise my shield in defense of magic most foul. I fought through devilry that seemed to snatch life from me, and the thought that this thing was once a woman seemed to play on my nerves. Most men would have crumbled, but I do not bend. The hag raven is a most repulsive creature, and deserving of its fate, and its claws that are my trophy will tell the story of Arabane's triumph. I have naught but to continue my travels and my conquests, for I have yet to see what would make me tremble. Another new one, The Oblivion Crisis, by Praxis Sarcorum, Imperial Historian. At the turning of the Fourth Age, in the year Third Era 433, the Emperor Uriel Septim VII was assassinated and the Amulet of Kings was destroyed. This set in motion a chain of events that would bring down an empire and change forever the relationship between man and the gods. The assassins first attacked the Emperor in the White Gold Tower. While the Blades held them back, the Emperor made his way down to the dungeons, to a secret escape route built into one of the prison cells. For reasons known only to himself, the Emperor pardoned the fortunate prisoner in that cell. Some say the prisoner reminded him of a childhood friend. Others say it was a moment of prophecy. Whatever the case, the prisoner came to play a fateful role in the history of the Empire and Tamriel, surely a sign that the gods themselves were at work. The pursuing assassins killed the Blades' bodyguards in a relentless series of sneak attacks. Eventually they struck down the Emperor himself. Before he fell, Uriel Septim VII gave the Amulet of Kings to the prisoner, who somehow made it out of the Imperial sewers and into the light of day. The assassination is now known to have been the work of a group of Daedric cultists known as the Mythic Dawn. Those who still suspect the Dark Brotherhood should consider two facts. First, they would have only needed a single assassin, not a small army of them. Second, the Dark Brotherhood would never be so foolish as to effectively declare war on the Empire, and thus ensure their complete destruction. Witness the eventual fate of the Mythic Dawn. The Amulet of Kings next surfaced at Waynon Priory near Corel. Joffrey, secret Grandmaster of the Blades and head of the Priory, took possession of the amulet. The messenger was sent off to Kvatch to find a lowly priest named Martin. Unbeknownst even to himself, Martin was the bastard son of Uriel Septim VII, and the last heir to the Ruby Throne. He alone could use the Amulet of Kings to light the dragon fires that wards the barrier between Tamriel and Oblivion, and save the world from the Mythic Dawn plot. The prisoner arrived at Kvatch to find it overrun by Daedra that had poured in from a newly opened Oblivion Gate, the start of the empire-spanning devastation of the Oblivion Crisis. How the prisoner closed the gate is not recorded. Once closed, Martin and the surviving Kvatch guardsmen drove back the Daedra. Now known as the Hero of Kvatch, the prisoner and Martin returned to Waynon Priory, only to find the priory sacked and the amulet taken. Joffrey survived the attack, however, and the three of them made their way to Cloud Ruler Temple, Bastion of the Blades. This secret fortress in the mountains outside Bruma is where Martin was held safe while the Hero of Kvatch searched for the lost amulet. Knowing only that a mysterious group called the Mythic Dawn was behind the assassination and theft of the amulet, the Hero of Kvatch was sent to locate the cult. With the help of Boris, a blade in the service of the Emperor, they somehow used the commentaries on the Mysterium Xarxes, esoteric works by the madman Mankar Cameron, to direct them to the Mythic Dawn's secret lair. Scholars familiar with the commentaries claim the location is not directly mentioned in them. How they did this remains a mystery. No official records exist of how the Hero of Kvatch penetrated the Mythic Dawn's lair near Lake Arius. There is a bardic tale that claims the hero used trickery and disguise, but that is just speculation. What was discovered there is that Mankar Cameron was behind the Mythic Dawn, and that the group worshipped the Daedric prince Mehrunes Dagon. Mankar Cameron believed himself to be a direct descendant of the Cameron usurper, the infamous pretender to the throne of Valenwood. Somehow the hero escaped with the Mysterium Xarxes itself, the holy book of the Mythic Dawn cult. Mankar Cameron fled to Oblivion with the Amulet of Kings. With some effort and great risk to his sanity, Martin deciphered the Mysterium Xarxes and intended to use it to open a gateway to Mankar Cameron in order to recover the Amulet of Kings. Before Martin could perform the ritual to open the gateway, Mehrunes Dagon opened an Oblivion Gate outside Bruma. The Hero of Kvatch saved the city and Martin by entering the gate and closing it before a Daedric siege engine could destroy Bruma and Cloud Ruler Temple. Many songs and stories have been told of this battle, and I will not retell them here. The Hero of Kvatch was now also known as the Savior of Bruma. With the city and Cloud Ruler Temple safe, Martin opened the portal to Mankar Cameron's paradise. The details of what transpired in this place have not been recorded. All that is known is that the Savior of Bruma traveled to this paradise, killed Mankar Cameron, and returned with the Amulet of Kings. With the amulet in hand, Martin Septim presented himself to the Elder Council to be crowned Emperor of all Tamriel. Once crowned, he planned to relight the dragon fires and seal Tamriel from oblivion. In a last-ditch effort to stop him, Mehrunes Dagon launched an assault on the Imperial City, opening several Oblivion gates within the capital itself. Uncrowned, Martin joined the battle in the city streets. Mehrunes Dagon himself left Oblivion and entered Tamriel, breaking the covenant. Only the unlit dragon fires allowed this to be possible. Now that the barrier was ripped asunder, it was too late to relight the fires. Martin Septim chose to make the ultimate sacrifice. He shattered the Amulet of Kings to become the avatar of the god Akatosh and do battle with Mehrunes Dagon. Records of this battle vary wildly. What we do know is that Mehrunes Dagon was defeated and sent back to Oblivion. The avatar of Akatosh was turned to stone and can be seen to this day in the Temple of the One in the Imperial City. With the amulet gone, the dragon fires quenched, and the last Dragonblood Emperor dead, the barrier to Oblivion is sealed forever. There we go. Next bookshelf. There's nothing on top. Iron battle axe. Had to steal it. It's expensive. That's noteworthy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 silver ingots. Now that's good news because I only needed, I think, 4 more. Yep. So now I have 3 silver ingots I can use in smithing. That's awesome. I need to keep track of that number in my head, too. Before the ages of man, illusion increased to 73. It's obviously a skill book. Let me take it off the book list first, and then jog over to free skill boosts. Anyway, illusion went to 73, always helpful. There's 7 illusion boosts in the game, so now we're down to 6. 4 skill books left to find. Timeline Series Volume 1, Before the Ages of Man, by Icantar of Shimmerine. Before man came to rule Tamriel, and before the chronicles of the historians recorded the affairs of the rulers of Tamriel, the events of our world are known only through myths and legends, and through the divinely inspired teachings of the 9 divines. For convenience, historians divide the distant ages of prehistory into 2 broad periods of time, the Dawn Era and the Merethic Era. The Dawn Era. The Dawn Era is that period before the beginning of mortal time when the feats of the gods take place. The Dawn Era ends with the exodus of the gods and magic from the world at the founding of the Adamantine Tower. The term Merethic comes from the Nordic, literally era of the elves. The Merethic Era is the prehistoric time after the exodus of the gods and magic from the world at the founding of the Adamantine Tower, and before the arrival of Ysgramor the Nord in Tamriel. The following are the most notable events of the Dawn Era, presented roughly in sequence as it must be understood by creatures of time such as ourselves. The cosmos formed from the Orbis, chaos or totality, by Anu and Padome. Akatosh, Ariel formed, and time began. The gods, Adada, formed. Lorcan convinced or tricked the gods into creating the mortal plane, Nirn. The mortal plane was at this point highly magical and dangerous. As the gods walked, the physical makeup of the mortal plane, and even the timeless continuity of existence itself, became unstable. When Magic, Magnus, architect of the plans for the mortal world, decided to terminate the project, the gods convened at the Adamantine Tower, Dyreni Tower, the oldest known structure in Tamriel, and decided what to do. Most left when Magic did. Others sacrificed themselves into other forms so that they might stay, the Elnathae. Lorcan was condemned by the gods to exile in the mortal realms, and his heart was torn out and cast from the tower. Where it landed, a volcano formed. With magic in the mythic sense gone, the cosmos stabilized. Elven history, finally linear, began ME 2500. The Merethic Era. So it's Merethic Era 2500. The Merethic Era was figured by early Nord scholars as a series of years numbered in reverse order backward from their beginning of time, the founding of the Cameron dynasty, recorded as year 0 of the First Era. The prehistoric events of the Merethic Era are listed here with their traditional Nordic Merethic dates. The earliest Merethic date cited by King Harold scholars was Merethic Era 2500, the Nordic reckoning of the first year of time. As such, the Merethic Era extends from Merethic Era 2500 in the distant past to Merethic Era 1, the year before the founding of the Cameron dynasty and the establishment of the White Gold Tower as an independent city-state. According to King Harold's bards, Merethic Era 2500 was the date of construction of the Adamantine Tower on Balfiera Island in High Rock, the oldest known structure of Tamriel. This corresponds roughly to the earliest historical dates given in various unpublished Elvish chronicles. During the early Merethic Era, the aboriginal beast peoples of Tamriel, the ancestors of the Khajiit, Argonian, Orcish, and other beast folk, lived in pre-literate communities throughout Tamriel. In the Middle Merethic Era, the Aldmeri, mortals of elven origin refugees, left their doomed and now lost continent of Aldmeris, also known as Old Elnathae, and settled in southwestern Tamriel. The first colonies were distributed at wide intervals on islands along the entire coast of Tamriel. Later inland settlements were founded primarily in fertile lowlands in southwest and central Tamriel. Wherever the beast folk encountered the elves, the sophisticated, literate, technologically advanced Aldmeri cultures displaced the primitive beast folk into the jungles, marshes, mountains, and wastelands. The adamantine tower was rediscovered and captured by the Dyreni, a prominent and powerful Aldmeri clan. The Crystal Tower was built on Somerset Isle, and later White Gold Tower in Cyrodiil. During the Middle Merethic era, Aldmeri explorers mapped the coasts of Vardenfell, building the First-era High Elven wizard towers at Aldredania, Balfell, Tel Arun, and Tel Mora in Morrowind. It was also during this period that Ayleid, wild elven settlements flourished in the jungles surrounding White Gold Tower, present-day Cyrodiil. Wild elves, also known as the Heartland High Elves, preserved the Dawn-era magics and language of the Elnafe. Ostensibly a tribute land to the High King of Alinor, the Heartland's long lines of communication from the Somerset Isles' sovereignty effectively isolated Cyrodiil from the High Kings at Crystal Tower. The late Middle Merethic era is the period of the High Velothi culture. The Chimer, ancestors of the modern Dunmer, or Dark Elves, were dynamic, ambitious, long-lived elven clans devoted to fundamentalist ancestor worship. The Chimer clans followed the prophet Veloth out of the ancestral elven homelands in the southwest to settle in the lands now known as Morrowind. Despising the secular culture and profane practices of the Dwemer, the Chimer also coveted the lands and resources of the Dwemer, and for centuries provoked them with minor raids and territorial disputes. The Dwemer, dwarves, free-thinking, reclusive elven clans devoted to the secrets of science, engineering, and alchemy, established underground cities and communities in the mountain range, later the Velothi Mountains, separating modern Skyrim and Morrowind. The late Merethic era marks the precipitous decline of Velothi culture. Some Velothi settled in villages near declining and abandoned ancient Velothi towers. During this period, Velothi high culture disappeared on Vardenfell Island. The earliest Dwemer freehold colonies date from this period. Degenerate Velothi devolved into tribal cultures which, in time, evolved into the modern great houses of Morrowind, or persisted as the barbarian Ashlander tribes. The only surviving traces of this tribal culture are scattered Velothi towers and Ashlander nomads on Vardenfell Island. The original First-era High Elven wizard towers along the coasts of Tamriel were also abandoned about this time. It was in the late Merethic era that the pre-literate humans, the so-called Nedic peoples from the continent of Atmora, also Altmora or the Elder Wood in Altmeris, migrated and settled in northern Tamriel. The Nord culture hero Ysgramor, leader of a great colonizing fleet to Tamriel, is credited with developing a runic transcription of Nord speech based on Elvish principles, and so Ysgramor is considered the first human historian. Ysgramor's fleet landed at Sarek Head at the extreme northern tip of Skyrim's Broken Cape. The Nords built there the legendary city of Sarthal. The elves drove the men away during the Night of Tears, but Ysgramor soon returned with his 500 companions. Also during the late Merethic era, the legendary immortal hero, warrior, sorcerer, and king, variously known as Pelinal Whitestrake, Harold Harry Breeks, Ysmir, Hans the Fox, etc., wandered Tamriel, gathering armies, conquering lands, ruling, then abandoning his kingdoms to wander again. Oh, there we go. Let's head over here. An Amulet of Talos. Well, I do happen to need that. Point of fact, I need 3 of them. So with this find, that number drops to 2. And A Dance in Fire V3. It's another new book. I like the Dance in Fire books, they're fun. Let me pull that off the list, and then we'll read it right quick. A Dance in Fire, Chapter 3, by Wogid Jarth. Mother Pascost disappeared into the sordid hole that was her tavern, and emerged a moment later with a scrap of paper with Leod's Juris's familiar scrawl. Decimus Scotti held it up before a patch of sunlight that had found its way through the massive boughs of the tree city and read, "Scotti, so you made it to Falinesti Valenwood. Congratulations. I'm sure you had quite an adventure getting here. Unfortunately, I'm not here anymore, as you probably guess. There's a town downriver called Athey I'm at. Get a boat and join me. It's ideal. I hope you brought a lot of contracts, 'cause these people need a lot of building done. They were close to the war, you see, but not so close they don't have any money left to pay. Ha ha. Meet me down here as soon as you can. Juris. So, Scotty pondered. Juris had left Falinesti and gone to some place called Athey. Given his poor penmanship and ghastly spelling, it could equally well be Athy, Athey, Authry, Imthry, Eartha, or Krakamaka. The sensible thing to do, Scotty knew, was to call this adventure over and try to find some way to get back home to the Imperial City. He was no mercenary devoted to a life of thrills. He was, or at least had been, a senior clerk at a successful private building commission. Over the last few weeks, he had been robbed by the Cathay Rat, taken on a death march through the jungle by a gang of giggling Bosmeri, half-starved to death, drugged with fermented pig's milk, nearly slain by some kind of giant tick, and attacked by archers. He was filthy, exhausted, and had, he counted, 10 gold pieces to his name. Now the man whose proposal brought him to the depths of misery was not even there. It was both judicious and seemly to abandon the enterprise entirely. And yet a small but distinct voice in his head told him, "You have been chosen. You have no other choice but to see this through." Scotty turned to the stout old woman, Mother Pascost, who had been watching him curiously. "I was wondering if you knew of a village that was at the edge of the recent conflict with elsewhere. It's called something like Athey?" "You must mean Athay," she grinned. "My middle lad, Viglil, he manages a dairy down there. Beautiful country, right on the river. Is that where your friend went?" "Yes," said Scotty. "Do you know the fastest way to get there?" After a short conversation, an even shorter ride to Falinesti's roots by way of the platforms, and a jog to the riverbank, Scotty was negotiating transport with a huge, fair-haired Bosmer with a face like a pickled carp. He called himself Captain Balfix, but even Scotty, with his sheltered life, could recognize him for what he was. A retired pirate for hire, a smuggler for certain, and probably much worse. His ship, which had clearly been stolen in the distant past, was a bent old Imperial sloop. 50 gold and we'll be in Athay in 2 days' time, boomed Captain Balfix expansively. "I have 9 gold pieces," replied Scotty, and feeling the need for explanation, added, "I had 10, but I gave one to the platform ferryman to get me down here." "9 is just as fine," said the captain agreeably. "Truth be told, I was going to Athay whether you paid me or not. Make yourself comfortable on the boat. We'll be leaving in just a few minutes." Decimus Scotty boarded the vessel, which sat low in the water of the river, stacked high with crates and sacks that spilled out of the hold and galley and onto the deck. Each was marked with stamps advertising the most innocuous substances. Copper scraps, lard, ink, high rock meal, marked for cattle, tar, fish jelly. Scotty's imagination reeled, picturing what sorts of illicit imports were truly aboard. It took more than those few minutes for Captain Balfix to haul in the rest of his cargo, but in an hour the anchor was up and they were sailing downriver towards Athay. The green-gray water barely rippled, only touched by the fingers of the breeze. Lush plant life crowded the banks, obscuring from sight all the animals that sang and roared at one another. Lulled by the serene surroundings, Scotty drifted to sleep. At night he awoke and gratefully accepted some clean clothes and food from Captain Balfix. "Why are you going to Athay, if I may ask?" queried the Bosmer. "I'm meeting a former colleague there. He asked me to come down from the Imperial City, where I worked for the Atreus Building Commission, to negotiate some contracts." Scotty took another bite of the dried sausages they were sharing for dinner. "We're going to try to repair and refurbish whatever bridges, roads, and other structures that got damaged in the recent war with the Khajiit." "It's been a hard 2 years," the captain nodded his head. "Though I suppose good for me and the likes of you and your friend. Trade routes cut off. Now they think there's going to be war with the Somerset Isles. You heard that?" Scotty shook his head. "I've done my share of smuggling skooma down the coast, even helping some revolutionary types escape the Maine's wrath. But now the wars have made me a legitimate trader, a businessman. The first casualties of war is always the corrupted." Scotty said he was sorry to hear that, and they lapsed into silence, watching the stars and moon's reflection on the still water. The next day, Scotty awoke to find the captain wrapped up in his sail, torpid from alcohol, singing in a low, slurred voice. When he saw Scotty rise, he offered his flagon of Jaga. "I learned my lesson during revelry at the Western Cross." The captain laughed and then burst into tears. "I don't want to be legitimate. Other pirates I used to know are still raping and stealing and smuggling and selling nice folk like you into slavery. I swear to you, I never thought the first time that I ran a real shipment of legal goods that my life would turn out like this. Oh, I know I could go back to it, but Bondar knows not after all I've seen. I'm a ruined man." Scotty helped the weeping Mer out of the sail, murmuring words of reassurance. Then he added, "Forgive me for changing the subject, but where are we?" "Oh," moaned Captain Balfix miserably. "We made good time. Athay's right around the bend in the river." "Then it looks like Athay's on fire," said Scotty, pointing. A great plume of smoke, black as pitch, was rising above the trees. As they drifted around the bend, they next saw the flames, and then the blackened skeletal remains of the village. Dying, blazing villagers leapt from rocks into the river. A cacophony of wailing met their ears, and they could see, roaming along the edges of the town, the figures of Khajiiti soldiers bearing torches. "Bondar bless me," slurred the captain. "The war's back on." "Oh no," whimpered Scotty. The sloop drifted with the current toward the opposite shore, away from the fiery town. Scotty turned his attention there and the sanctuary it offered. Just a peaceful arbor, away from the horror. There was a shudder of leaves in 2 of the trees, and a dozen lithe Khajiit dropped to the ground, armed with bows. "They see us," hissed Scotty, "and they've got bows." "Well, of course they have bows," snarled Captain Balfix. "We Bosmer may have invented the bloody things, but we didn't think to keep them secret, you bloody bureaucrat. Now they're setting their arrows on fire." "Yes, they do that sometimes." "Captain, they're shooting at us. They're shooting at us with flaming arrows." "Ah, so they are," the captain agreed. "The aim here is to avoid being hit." But hit they were, and very shortly thereafter. Even worse, the second volley of arrows hit the supply of pitch, which ignited in a tremendous blue blaze. Scotty grabbed Captain Balfix, and they leapt overboard just before the ship and all its cargo disintegrated. The shock of the cold water brought the Bosmer into temporary sobriety. He called to Scotty, who was already swimming as fast as he could toward the bend. "Master Decimus, where do you think you're swimming to?" "Back to Falinesti," cried Scotty. "It will take you days, and by the time you get there, everyone will know about the attack on Athay. They'll never let anyone they don't know in. The closest village downriver is Grenos. Maybe they'll give us shelter." Scotty swam back to the captain, and side by side they began paddling in the middle of the river, past the burning residuum of the village. He thanked Mara that he had learned how to swim. Many a Cyrodiil did not, as largely landlocked as the imperial province was. Had he been raised in Mir Korup or Ardaman, he might have been doomed, but the imperial city itself was encircled by water, and every lad and lass there knew how to cross without a boat, even those who grew up to be clerks and not adventurers. Captain Balfix's sobriety faded as he grew used to the water's temperature. Even in wintertide, the Xylov River was fairly temperate, and after a fashion even comfortable. The Bosmer's strokes were uneven, and he'd stray closer to Scotty and then further away, pushing ahead and then falling behind. Scotty looked to the shore to his right. The flames had caught the trees like tinder. Behind them was an inferno with which they were barely keeping pace. To the shore on their left, all looked fair, until he saw a tremble in the river reeds, and then what caused it. A pride of the largest cats he had ever seen. They were auburn-haired, green-eyed beasts with jaws and teeth to match his wildest nightmares, and they were watching the 2 swimmers and keeping pace. "Captain Balfix, we can't go to either that shore or the other one, or we'll be parboiled or eaten," Scotty whispered. "Try to even your kicking and your strokes. Breathe like you would normally. If you're feeling tired, tell me, and we'll float on our backs for a while." Anyone who has had the experience of giving rational advice to a drunkard would understand the hopelessness. Scotty kept pace with the captain, slowing himself, quickening, drifting left and right, while the Bosmer moaned old ditties from his pirate days. When he wasn't watching his companion, he watched the cats on the shore. After a stretch, he turned to his right. Another village had caught fire. Undoubtedly it was Grenos. Scotty stared at the blazing fury, awed by the sight of the destruction, and did not hear that the captain had ceased to sing. When he turned back, Captain Balfix was gone. Scotty dove into the murky depths of the river over and over again. There was nothing to be done. When he surfaced after his final search, he saw that the giant cats had moved on, perhaps assuming that he too had drowned. He continued his lonely swim downriver. A tributary, he noted, had formed a final barrier, keeping the flames from spreading further, but there were no more towns. After several hours, he began to ponder the wisdom of going ashore. Which shore was the question. He was spared the decision. Ahead of him was a rocky island with a bonfire. He did not know if he were intruding on a party of Bosmeri or Khajiit, only that he could swim no more. With straining, aching muscles, he pulled himself onto the rocks. They were Bosmer refugees, he gathered, even before they told him. Roasting over the fire was the remains of one of the giant cats that had been stalking him through the jungle on the opposite shore. "Sencha tiger," said one of the young warriors ravenously. "It's no animal. It's as smart as any Cathayrod or Ohms or any other bleeding Khajiit. Pity this one drowned. I would have gladly killed it. You'll like the meat, though. Sweet, from all the sugar these asses eat." Scotty did not know if he was capable of eating a creature as intelligent as a man or mer, but he surprised himself, as he had done several times over the last days. It was rich, succulent, and sweet, like sugared pork, but no seasonings had been added. He surveyed the crowd as he ate, a sad lot, some still weeping for lost family members. They were the survivors of both the villages of Grenos and Athe, and war was on every person's lips. Why had the Khajiit attacked again? Why, specifically directed at Scotty as a Cyrodiil, why was the Emperor not enforcing peace in his provinces? "I was to meet another Cyrodiil," he said to a Bosmer maiden who he understood to be from Athe. "His name was Leodes Juris. I don't suppose you know what might have happened to him." "I don't know your friend, but there were many Cyrodiils in Athe when the fire came," said the girl. "Some of them, I think, left quickly. They were going to Vindisi, inland, in the jungle. I am going there tomorrow, so are many of us. If you wish, you may come as well." Decimus Scotty nodded solemnly. He made himself as comfortable as he could in the stony ground of the river island, and somehow, after much effort, he fell asleep, but he did not sleep well. Alright. Now, before I clear this room, I just want to show you really quick. Out behind the Jarl's quarters, there's a very lovely little balcony with a great view of the city of Whiterun. I always thought there ought to be a readable bird's nest up here, but there isn't, at least as far as I know. But yeah, if you look out, there's the city. It's very nice. And that's all there is to this little balcony. That's no problem. You can fast travel from out here, though, which is nice, of course. So let's clear out this room next.
Goblin?
Everything is free to take. That's always nice. How's my carry weight? 231. Gonna need to offload soon, and it might be a good time to end the video anyway, because we're running up on an hour. Dragonsreach is a pretty big place to loot all by itself. Boots, hat, ragged cap. Alright.
Father's too young to train with
Let's
the sword,
do
so I practice with my fists.
Prongdar's
You're
bedroom.
the one who cast those illusions.
That's this
Impressive.
one. So, let's just get started. Okay, that's another silver ingot, so now my usable surplus is 4. Here's a new book, The Dunmer of Skyrim, by Athol Saris. The title is just Dunmer of Skyrim. Dunmer, that is our name, yet you deny us even this courtesy. You, the white-skinned, jaundice-haired apes of this god's-forsaken frozen wilderness. To you Nords, we are the grey ones, the ashen-skinned, the dark elves of Morrowind, who have as much place in your land as an infection in an open wound. Oh yes, we have read your great cultural work, Nords of Skyrim, in which you extol the many virtues of your people and province, and invite any visitors to come experience your homeland for themselves. Well, come we did, Nords, and the reception was less than was promised, but exactly what we expected. So I, Athol Saris, Dunmer and Dunmer, and immigrant to Skyrim, have decided to answer your beloved book with a work of my own, and let all who read it know that Nords are not the only race to reside in this cold and inhospitable realm. For we Dark Elves have come, and little by little shall claim Skyrim as our own. But where, you may ask, have we taken up residence? Why, none other than the ancient city of Windhelm, once the capital of the First Empire. Yes, Nords, in the shadow of your own Palace of the Kings, where the Nord hero Ysgramor once held court, we now thrive. Oh yes, your beloved 500 companions may have driven our ancestors from Skyrim, but that was then. This is now. Indeed, one might be surprised as to just how well we've settled into Windhelm. The district once known as the Snow Quarter is thus named no more. Now they call it the Grey Quarter, for such is the reality of the Dunmer occupation. The district is now populated entirely by my kind, a victory not lost on its residents. Oh, but the peaceful occupation goes even further. Thirsty? You'll find no Nord mead hall in the Grey Quarter, but the spirits flow well enough in the new Nissus Corner Club. Seeking a respected family? You'll find no Greymanes within these walls, but perhaps you'd like to pay a visit to the home of Belin Hlalu, descendant of one of the most noble houses in all of Morrowind. Ah, but no, you Nords don't come to the Grey Quarter, do you? You fear our streets, as you fear our skin. So now, children of Skyrim, you have the truth of it. You may call this province home, but you can no sooner claim to own it than a cow can claim to own its master's field. You are just another breed of domestic animal, grazing stupidly while higher beings plot your slaughter. Well, that's harsh. That's a 5th surplus silver ingot, so I have 5 that I can use now. The City of Stone. Another new book. The City of Stone, A Sellsword's Guide to Markarth, by Amanda Alea, Mercenary. If you're cutting your coins across Skyrim, you'll want to point your blade towards Markarth, the capital city of the Reach. There's no end of trouble in the City of Stone, and that means plenty of ways for you to earn your supper. Your sellsword instincts should point you towards the wealthiest patrons with the fattest purses to work for, but you need to mind yourself during your resting hours. Markarth isn't like your Whiterun, where mercenary companions where mercenary companies like the companions make a sellsword an honored professional. No, Markarth has its own rules the natives aren't going to just tell you. Lucky for you, old Ms. Alea is here to shine the torchlight over your thick skulls. First thing you'll notice in the City of Stone is the stone. They say dwarves cut out the city from the mountain, and maybe they did by the look of it, but what it really means is that the whole place is vertical, and that the streets are really cliffs. Long story short, be careful when you've got a belly full of mead. When you enter the city proper, you'll immediately hit the market. The merchants usually sell food and jewelry on the streets. Mead is the preferred ration. The craggy rocks in the area make for poor farming land, and silver is what's used to make most all the rings and necklaces you might buy, thanks to the large silver mine in the city. We'll get to that in a bit. Whatever you do, don't ask the Markarth City Guard about anything. They're about as helpful as an angry frostbite spider while you're caught in its web, and if you mention anything about the Forsworn to them, they might spit in your eye. Speaking of the Forsworn, these wild men and women will be your main source of income while you're in Markarth. The Jarl almost always has a bounty on some Forsworn leader or another, and if you don't mind going blade to axe with someone 2 septims short of a pint of ale, it's steady work. The Silverblood Inn is where you want to head into after seeing the market. The drinks are, as usual, watered down, and judging by the metallic taste, with water from the rivers that run through the city's smelter district. What's important here is getting a room to stay in. You won't find any friendly faces to con your way into a cheap place to stay in Markarth. The natives don't trust strangers, so save yourself the trouble and put down your coin to rent a real room. After you've spent a day recovering from travel, you'll see that Markarth is divided in 2 sides by the big crag in the center. The part with the big river running through it is called the riverside, and the other is called the dry side. The riverside is where the smelter and native workers live, so don't bother going there. Instead, head directly to Dryside and talk to the local Nord nobles and see what problems you can start solving at the highest rate. 2 major places to see are the Temple of Dibella and Sidna Mine. The temple rests on the top of the central crag, A good place to go if you're on good terms with the divines, but be warned, the priestesses of Dibella don't allow men into their inner sanctums, so don't go crashing down in there uninvited unless you want a short trip to a long fall. Sidna Mine is the place where all the silver comes from that I mentioned before, but it's also the jail. Markarth uses prisoners to mine the ore, and there's a lot of it, so don't get caught doing something illegal in the city or you'll be hauled down there to dig. Apparently, the whole place is owned by one of the big families in the city, the Silverbloods. Notice how the inn is named after them? Always keep your sellsword eye open for hints like that. I tried meeting with the head of the Silverblood family to see if they had any work. But guarding their mines isn't the blood rush I became a mercenary for. Something to keep in mind for yourself if you're thinking of staying a few months. The final place I'll talk about here is Understone Keep, the home of the Jarl in Markarth. It's a fancy palace like any other, assuming your palace is built underground, but what you need to know is the city underneath the keep. That's right, there's another city below Markarth, one of those old dwarven ruins. They sometimes have expeditions in the ruins that makes for a good job, guarding the scholars and maybe lifting a few stones here and there. If you're lucky, you might come across one of those old dwarven machines, and you can bring back a souvenir after you're done breaking it apart. Alright, Ms. Alea's hand is getting tired, and that means this guide is done. Last piece of advice, don't cause trouble in Markarth. Don't start fights, don't stop fights, don't stick your head anywhere without someone from the city paying you for it, because believe me, no one in Markarth wants you there. Make your gold, drink your mead, see what's there to see, and move on. Nothing changes in the City of Stone, and that's just fine. Fair enough. 288. Getting close. 293. Another new book, The Talos Mistake. We're up to 294. Let's take care of that one right quick. The Talos Mistake by Leonora Venatus, Imperial Liaison to the Aldmeri Dominion. As citizens of the Empire, all are of course familiar with the deeds of Emperor Tiber Septim, but it is the Emperor's ascent to godhood, as Talos, that is the subject of this work. Until Tiber Septim's death, there had been but 8 divines, Akatosh, Dibella, Arkay, Zenithar, Stendar, Mara, Kinnereth, and Julianos. These gods were, and are, worshipped throughout the Empire, and while some may have different names in the varying provinces, for example, Akatosh is known as Ariel to the Aldmer, and Arkay is sometimes known as Arkay, all are recognized and revered by all races and cultures of Tamriel. But when Tiber Septim passed to Aetherius, there came to be a 9th divine, Talos, also called Ismir, the Dragon of the North. The man who was so loved in life became worshipped in death. Indeed, it can be argued that Talos, the 9th divine, became even more important than the 8 that had preceded him, at least to humans. For he was a god who was once just a man, and through great deeds actually managed to ascend to godhood. And if one human could achieve such a feat, couldn't it be done again? Couldn't all humans aspire to achieve divinity? So we thought, we humans, and so we continued to worship Talos and revere him as the ultimate hero god. But that was then, this is now, and now we know the truth. We were wrong. As citizens of the Empire, we all experienced the horrors of the Great War, and it was not until the signing of the White Gold Concordat, the treaty between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion, that we once again knew peace. One of the most important stipulations of that treaty, as every imperial citizen is well aware, is that Talos can no longer be worshipped as a god. This edict shook the very foundations of the Empire. There were those who rebelled against the law. Indeed, some still do. But the citizens of the Empire must know this. The Emperor did not agree to outlaw the worship of Talos because it was demanded by the Thalmor, the ruling body of the Aldmeri Dominion. The Emperor agreed to outlaw the worship of Talos because it was the right thing to do. Today the Emperor, and indeed the Empire itself, recognizes that allowing the worship of Talos was a mistake, for by doing so, by allowing the worship of Talos... Sorry about that barking dog. that allowing the for by doing so, by allowing the worship of Talos as a divine, the Empire actually did its people a great disservice, for this only succeeded in weakening the memory of the man Tiber Septim and his many extraordinary though mortal deeds, and pushing people away from the 8 divines, the true gods who do deserve our love and reverence. And so the Empire admits it was wrong. The Talos mistake will not be repeated. May we find centuries of peace and prosperity with our new Thalmor friends, and continue to share a spirituality that binds together all the cultures and races of Tamriel. Well, that's just a load of horse shit. Alright, let's grab those clothes. I'm gonna grab the lavender out of these. I don't know what you call these.
Another wanderer.
They're not pots, they're too long, but
In the skeever hole of a city.
it's time for an offload. And then, because it's been nearly an hour, I think it's time to end the video too. So, I tell you what I'm gonna do. Head out here. I'm actually just gonna fast travel to the Whiterun Gate. We'll visit Elrendir, sell whatever I can to him. And then go to Belethor, wait 1 hour at a time. You know, follow the usual pattern.
Bows and arrows for the mighty huntsman.
So weapons, nothing. Apparel, nothing. Food. Oh, there was not much.
Thank you very much. Business.
No weapons or armor. And that's it for food. So that just leaves potions. The only one I have is stolen, so Belethor's the only guy I need to visit. How do you like that?
Or cast your
And with 100 pickpocket, I should be able to take gold and arrows off of any guard I need. Illusion to 74. That's awesome. Just keep going with this. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And done. Alright, let's roll in there. I don't know why it was
Take a
still
good
locked.
look around. I'm sure you'll find what you're looking for.
But it should
Yeah,
be
but-
done.
Oh, a bit of this and a bit of that.
Okay, Belethor. Holding on to that amulet. Sell you all these clothes. And sell him all of these books. Of which, as you can see, there are a lot. And then we'll sell him all the clutter.
Do come back.
And now we'll head to Anissa's cabin and drop things off. Still haven't managed to track down Irileth. She might actually have despawned because she appears in a cutscene type fashion to start off the next bit in the main quest, so I may not be able to talk to her until after I talk to Farengar and do Dragon Rising, and, you know, that's not a big deal. Just have to remember that I haven't done anything with her yet. Okay, I need to keep both of those amulets. Everything else in here is good to just drop off. This is everything other than my hunting brew mead. Mammoth tusk. That's it. Still no unique items. Let's drop down here. Starting here. Done with that one. Amulet of Stendar, Amulet of Talos, both go in that one. As do 4 of these silver ingots. This one, I don't think I found anything, so let's move to the smithing sack. Put away our gems, and the other 5 silver ingots. Put away the lavender. Now let me make sure I'm not toting anything else I shouldn't be. My default weight went up again because of the upgrade to ebony armor. And that's fine and dandy. I'm more than happy with that. Well, back to Whiterun. And it's been an hour, so even though we haven't done that much, I'm going to have to call it a video.
Go cast your fancy magic someplace.
Yet again, illusion went to 75, that's good. But yet again,
You're a bad sneak.
forgot
You're not
to
creeping
fast
up on
travel
anybody
directly
like
to
that.
Dragonsreach. So let me get back to where I left off, which was at the children's bedroom. Yes, Irileth has not reappeared, so my assumption is she won't until Dragon Rising, and we won't be able to talk to her or do anything
All
with
this
her
standing around is rubbish. We should
until
be taking the fight to the Stormcloaks.
after that quest, which is fine. Well, let's head back to the Jarl's quarters. Guess he's just hanging out up here. All the way back up to where we left off. Which was time to loot the children's bedroom.
I know you're kind. Always
Absurd
thinking
that
about.
you can't go good.
Yeah,
people
these are the same
in the
guards.
skeever hole of a city.
So, let me save, and quick save, and we'll call it a video. This has been Let's Play Skyrim. Next time, we'll continue looting Dragonsreach. We'll do that as long as it takes, and then we'll move on in the main quest. So, until then, thank you all very much for watching. Bye-bye.